What is up, everyone? This is BigPowner, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to step-by-step create an absolutely insane helm for the Blade Vortex, my Blade Vortex build. This will work for any Blade Vortex build, but if it's not fire, you're going to have to change what it is that you're adding, but this is going to work for any Blade Vortex build because the base gem is physical, and then you pick an element or a chaos damage, and you would just swap those things out. And all the things that I'm choosing, there is going to be a choice for that, except for one of the things, which is going to, um, well, no, everything in it is going to regardless of your damage, going to work for this, and there's going to be an option. And I'll go ahead and go through what my choices are. This is kind of a this is kind of a harder craft to think through because there's a lot of stuff that I want on it. We're doing dual influence crafting, and we want to make it as easy as possible to guaranteed get what we're going for. Otherwise, we're going to have a hard time and we're not going to have fun. So that's what I've done, and we're going to go and talk through what it is that I want. I'm fire damage. My Blade Vortex is fire damage. So there's three things that I want from the Hunters, which is the number-to-number fire damage to spells, physical damage because it's a physical damage skill gem. I'm gonna want HP, which that's not that isn't one of these, but it's gonna be very easy to get on there. And I want the shocking conflicts. Nothing else on here I want. I'm also going to be doing a dual influence craft on this, and the only thing that I want on here is going to be the number percent to fire resistance, number percent to fire. It reduces the fire resistance of our enemies, which basically increases the damage that they take by this 9%. And since we're Blade Vortex and we're up in stuff's faces, that's going to actually be a very effective thing to add to this build. So the most important thing is our Shocking Conflux. This is actually our biggest damage increase on this. The reason why is because the way that Shock works. So Shock applies a damage increase based on the magnitude of the hit. Then there's something called min shock. Any build that is not using lightning damage or shocking conflicts is probably applying a min shock, which is the absolute minimum amount of shock effect that you can do. Which I can't remember I remember they changed it. I think it's 20% now. It's either 10% or 20%. You guys can look that up. I got a lot to cover in this video. The point is, it goes up to a base of 50%. So there's a lot more damage that we can gain there. So this is a huge damage increase potential because it increases damage taken. So this is up to an actual 50% increase. That is crazy. You have shocking conflicts for 3 seconds out of 8 seconds. So you might be like, oh, it's only up 3/8 of the time. That's not how shock works. It can be applied while the shocking conflicts is up for 3 out of 8 seconds. But the shock lasts for a base. And then we can also increase effect and duration of this. So I've got 20% shock of effectiveness. So we have a absolute minimum of we have 3 seconds up, 2 seconds more, plus a base min shock increase shock effectiveness of 20%, which is bringing it up to 5.4 out of 8 seconds. So we're effectively going to be able to get in the range of 5.4 of 80. You're talking about like, I don't know. I can't do that fraction math in my head. I don't even know where my phone is. But it's going to be essentially somewhere in the like 65 to like 65 Well, 2.5, 75, that's 67. Like 70, around 70% of the time the shock is going to be up. So 70% of up to 50%, we're talking about like a 35% damage over time increase, somewhere in that range. That's not exact. That's just um, me doing math quickly, an estimate. So like that's quite a bit of damage increase. 35% actual damage increase over time, which the only time that the shocking conflicts is really going to matter is going to be on bigger targets, which they're going to get hit by that shock, and they're going to take that massive damage increase, which is what we want. So we absolutely want that on there because it's just simply put going to be the largest damage increase. So let's go ahead and bring this back up and talk about what else we want. Oh, and how Shocking Conflicts works, the reason why it does so much damage is because, remember I was talking about this min shock. What Shocking Conflicts does is it turns all of your other damage to count as lightning damage, which means your max hits, whatever they are, when Shocking Conflicts is up, that's counted as lightning damage. So that makes it so that the magnitude of your hits are your maximum hits, which for my particular build, I'm stacking like an insane amount of crit multiplier. We can see, you can't see all of it, but my display does 349% multiplier just on my 2 wands. I have another 60% when I'm near rares. That's 409%. I have another 20% that's going to be coming from my helm. That's 429%. And you have to remember 2 of my cluster jewels aren't in yet, and I haven't rolled my 6 or 7 jewels. So I'm shooting to realistically be like 600 plus multiplier, 600% or higher multiplier at the end of this build. So that's a massive, massive hit. My average hits right now are like well, we can actually just bring this right over. About 1.2 million is what my average hit is right now. 1,188,000 is what my average hit is before adding this stuff. So that's going to go up a lot because we're talking about adding a lot of damage in this. So let's go back to the DB. The other 2 things that I want from the Hunter's Influence is going to be this number-to-number fire damage to spells. This is something I definitely want. And the number-to-number physical damage to spells. So the combine of these 2 things is like close to what the number-to-number damage, base damage of the Blade Vortex spell is at level 20. It's not very high at level 20. So just to give you an idea, it's a lot of damage on your helm that we're going to be gaining this way. And like I said, this is just guaranteed. This is what I'm going to want on my base when I slam them together for the warlords, because this is the only thing that I want from this. And you know, someone showed me, someone did this with the multiplier on here. The reason why I'm not going for multiplier and the negative percent to nearby enemies is because I'm gonna actually want to get resistances in one of the slots, because I need resistances. I need to pick up resistances, and the only other way for me to pick up those resistances realistically is to put them on my jewels, which I want to have all multiplier stats on my jewels because I have no crit chance on my jewels right now, and I can get 3 multiplier stats, one of them being multiplier while dual wielding, which is 18%. We have global multiplier, which is 12%, so that's 30. And then we have another one that's to spells that I believe is another 18. That's 48% multiplier that we can add on. The resistance adds for jewels are a maximum, if we only go one type, is 16%. So that one slot on the helmet will free up 3 slots on jewels. So, you know, do I want 48%, or, you know, even if I don't get perfect rolls, do I want like 30%, or do I want the 20% on the helm? Now you understand why I want some resistances on this helm. The other thing that I would like to point out is you could do a cheap version of this. You could just ignore this. You could go for shocking conflicts. You could go for the number to number fire damage to spells, physical damage to spells, 2 resistances, and you could save yourself a Awakener's Orb, but you won't get that cool you won't get that cool dual influence. It's actually a really viable option for the exact reason that I just mentioned. In this method, we're going to be taking up 2 of the bottom slots and 2 of the top slots, and then we're going to have HP and 1 resistance, which is going to work for my build. But you know, if you need a place to pick up some resistances, the other options on the 9% reduction to resistances loses by a lot to the shocking conflicts. So the shocking conflicts is definitely going to want to be on there, but you know, something to consider. Maybe you've picked up resistances somewhere else. The other thing I'd like to point out is the main reason why I have to pick up these resistances because I'm using a Headhunter. My previous belt was triple resistances on the bottom. If you're not using a Headhunter, I'd suggest picking up your resistances there, using prismatic catalysts, and you can boost the resistance on that belt up to like 171% from one item. So, you know, because we have to pick up stuff on our rings that takes up those slots, and so yeah. The belt's a good place to pick that up. I will do a DPS craft eventually on this because like Headhunter is good for mapping, but it's not good for bosses. So eventually I'll probably do a DPS belt that is a much cheaper option than the Headhunter. Okay, so back to the decisions on this. Like I said, this is a little bit of a complicated decision because we have a lot of things to consider. I have 3 things on this that I want to have. What are the best 2 to start with? So we can look at fire damage. What else is fire on here? Okay, so we have nothing in the top that is fire. So if we isolate the top, the only thing we have to worry about are Hunter and Warlord mods. So what are the Hunter and Warlord mods? We have number to number fire damage to spells. That's what we want. We also have number % of physical damage from hits taken as fire. This is actually a really good defensive stat for this build. Like if you're trying to make this build like really tanky, this would actually be like a really good choice because we have overcapped fire resistance, but this is not what we want. We want damage. So we're going to be rolling between these 2 things when these 2 things are isolated. This one is a lower chance to hit because there's more of these, but we only want the tier 1, so we basically have a 1 out of 5 chance if we have the top isolated. That doesn't sound amazing, but it's not absolutely terrible. Physical damage to spells. We have 3 chances to hit this. We specifically want this this one. We want the tier 1. That is what I'm going to go for on this because I'm going to have good chances to get all the stuff that I want. That's how we're going to plan this craft. So let's go ahead and continue. We know the chances on this, it's 1 out of 5. We know that this doesn't have any other physicals here, so we have to check at the top. What other physicals? We have 1 other physical, which is reflects damage to attackers. These are 1,000 stat each. And the physical is 500 each. We only want 1 of these. So this is essentially, that makes 4. So we have a 1 out of 7. So this would be better to start with than the number to number fire damage to spells. However, what is the other thing that we want? We want shocking conflicts. This is an elemental tag, which means we can't use the harvest to get it. So we have a 0% chance of rolling it with harvest. So we have to start with this. This is 100% what we have to start with. So shocking conflicts for the Hunter's Helm. Nearby enemies have number % to fire resistance, to fire resistances. Okay, so this is what we're going to be choosing on this. This is going to possibly get us into a sticky situation. It would be nice if we could just be like, start with fire, damage to spells, start with this, and then we wouldn't have to worry about fire, and we could just do physical swaps. But Shocking Conflicts is not counted as a lightning spell. It's labeled as elemental. And we can go ahead and look at this. I've gone ahead and gotten one of these. It's listed as elemental, so there's no way for us to specifically add this to an item. It would have been awesome if we could, because like I said, I'm looking for a resistance as my third stat. So that would have been a sweet thing, because then I could have just been like lightning resistance and shocking conflicts guaranteed on the bottom. Bam, that is done. But it's an elemental tag, so we can't do that. So we have to start with this. Now let's talk about the base that I've chosen. Well, we've chosen our two stats. We know that we're going to be starting with the percent fire, negative to the fire of nearby enemies, and we're also going to have the shocking conflicts. And then we're going to be adding, re-rolling and adding the other things that we want. One nice thing about this, we're going to have our bottom pretty quickly isolated, because we have two of the things down there that we want. So yeah, that's one good bright side about this, because we have, what this does for us is if we wind up with a really bad top, we can do the reroll prefixes, don't touch suffixes. So that's a nice bonus to this. So I've started with a base. I've gone a little bit more of an expensive route, because I started with a Helm enchantment. I didn't go for the tier 1. The tier 1 gives 3% to critical strike multiplier for each blade. The increase in cost wasn't worth it to me, but I did want to start with a Helm enchantment. So I went with this one because it cost me 88 chaos. I specifically chose the multiplier because for my build it's going to be the most damage, since I have an effective... One second. So I have an effective crit chance of 94.18. So 94.18% of that damage, essentially like 18% increase to damage for that stat. So that's very good. The other choices are also viable. You could get the increased spell damage. Increased spell damage, it's the most popular one, aka also the most expensive. And honestly, I would value that one probably the least. And why is that? Because we have increased area of effect, which some people complain about the area of effect. So that would be, to make it run more smoothly, having more area of effect, that would be a viable thing to go for. The other thing is increased duration of Blade Vortex. Why would this be a good choice as far as increasing the strength of the build? Well, you have to remember that we have to use points to get increased skill effect duration. So, if we're spending points to get increased skill effect duration, if we can get that somewhere else, we free up those points. We can get more damage somewhere else. So, there you go. That is why I would say that is a good choice also. So if you're going to start with an enchantment, it's probably going to be the most cost efficient to do what I've done. Buy it on the base that you want, which I've gone with Royal Burgonet because it has the highest base armor of any of the any of the bases. You can find this out by just typing in helmets. Maybe you want, an energy shield, which is going to be a Huber's Circlet. Maybe you want evasion. Maybe you want a mixture of the two. You can find out which ones are the best ones and weigh those before you pick out your base. Why am I saying this? Because you might not be a chieftain that's stacking armor for your molten shell as far as defense. Okay. The next step, because I am investing a decent amount into this, is I have gone ahead and used perfect fossils, which I didn't do this. This is going to be a long video, but I don't want to make it too long. I don't want to make it like really crazy long. I want to do the whole craft, but I didn't want to be sitting here for, like possibly forever. So I went ahead and got it to 29% quality. The way that you do this before you put the stats on it that you want and stuff like that. Otherwise, you're going to have a bad time because this works like a chaos orb that also re-rolls the quality. So I settled for 29% quality. The maximum's 30. You know, syndicate you can add up to 28%. But you know, I just wanted to go ahead and get it 28% plus. I've done that. Okay. So now what I have to do is I have to add the influence to this, and I have to get the stat on it that I want. So the two choices that I have chosen, I've chosen warlords. One second. I got too many things open. Okay, so I've chosen warlords and hunter. So I have to add the warlord to this. Okay, so now, and also you need to make sure that it's a high enough tier base. So 85 is what you need for this. Okay, so now I have to isolate the stat that I want. You could do this more cost efficiently by rolling like fire stats. But actually, well, we'll see if I get lucky. And can hit the. If I can't, then I'm going to. Oh man, I want that. I want that life roll on. So I'm basically just looking for the stat that I want to start with, which is the reduced percent to nearby enemies. Which I can actually, you know, I'm going to do this the smarter way. So we're going to upgrade this. I have 3 stats on it that are not stats that I want. I'm going to craft on fire resistance. The cheapest one. Then I'm going to go non-fire to fire. And there's only going to be 2 things I can hit. So it's instead of wasting alts are actually really expensive right now. And that could also take a lot of time. So I'm going to show you the way to do it with harvest crafting. Fire. I need change non-fire. Move non-fire, add fire. So there's 1. I could wind up hitting it in 1, but in 2 it will be guaranteed. So I'm going to take 2 of these, and I'll go and show you what it is that I'll show you what it is that I'm saying. So we have this, which is what I want to hit. We have 1 other fire stat here, the physical fire. Oh yeah, that's 1 extra thing we can roll while we're trying to roll our other thing, but we don't have another choice. And then the only other fire is this right here. So I only am going to have 2. I'm only going to have to roll twice by crafting that on there. Before you start this, you want to make sure that you don't have any other other mods, because then I'm gonna have to risk removing one. Luckily, our annulment orbs are cheap. Hey, got it. It's 50-50. Okay. That was a lot faster than just lucking it with. It's honestly not that. It's not that rare. It's a 250 stat, but still, as far as which way is going to be faster, that's definitely faster. Okay, so now I have the 2 stats that I want. I have the nearby enemies have -9 to their fire resistance, and I have my shocking conflict. So now the next step is I just need to add these together. So I need my Awakener's Orb. Okay, Awakener's Orb. I explain this every single time that I do it because some people might not be used to it. It explains it on it. You click this item. You click on the one that you want to destroy. Make sure that you only have 1 influence mod, the one that you want, on each item. Otherwise, it's going to randomly select between the 2. It will guaranteed take 1 influence mod from each item, so you want to make sure that they are your top tier. The shocking conflicts, it says that it's tier 2, but they're all the same. There's no tier on these. Here, I can show you. We'll bring that up. there's no tier. Like, it says tier 2, but there's no tier distinction. It only does one thing. Which is kind of funny, but whatever. And I don't have any other influence on both these. You want to make sure that you see that it says of the hunt for the hunters, obviously letting you know that it's of the hunter. And they all say something like this. Like this one, it says of the conquest, which is the, and you can check the stats to confirm that the stuff that's on there is in fact, you know, just regular stats and not something that's going to wind up screwing your item. So I'm going to click the one that I want to destroy first, and then I'm going to click the one that I want to keep. Okay, this actually wound up perfectly. So my bottom is actually already finished. Because I have lightning resistance, I have shocking conflicts, which if it was any other resistance, I could literally just do resistance for resistance swap. At this point, if there was something else on there, anything that's fire, the only other thing that's fire that could show up on there would be on the top, which also has the physical modifier, which I can do physical for physical swaps. So there's literally no way that this item can be ruined starting from this direction, because nothing is going to affect our elemental. And the fire, as long as we don't do a fire for fire swap, is not going to get messed up. The cool thing is, if we do wind up removing our fire resistance, it's actually pretty easy to re-add. Like starting with it on there is nice, but it's really not that it's really not going to be that hard to do. I already have life on there, so I can just do life for life swaps. At this point, it is literally just going to be a matter of... It's literally just going to be a matter of time. There's two ways that I can do this. First off, I'm going to start with physical first. Why is this? If I hit... Let's bring it up. It's actually smart. If I hit... Oh, gotta make it so you guys can see. If I hit this first, this is actually good, because I can remove this with physical, but it's also fire. So this kind of narrows down what it is that I can get on here, and there's only one thing that I can roll on here that's fire. So if I get that on there, I can guaranteed swap physical for physical, but it prevents, you know, it isolates my rolling on my my fire damage spells. So I'm going to start with physical. We have to do an augment to get the first one on there. And then we can do swaps. I'm going to need this later. This will be a reroll. Augment physical. There we go. Let me grab some extra rerolls. I might not get it perfect on this video, but we are going to get it into a nice state. Okay. Actually, physical's purple. Let's try and keep these in somewhat relative right zones. Okay, so I have to do the augment physical first. Okay, so I got the thing that does nothing for me. So I'm going to now do replaces on this, because that's the I'm not ready to slam fire, and I'm also not going to okay, remove a physical, add a physical. So the only physical on there is something that we don't want, so we can safely do that. Remove physical, add a new physical. Okay, so now I have the now I have that block scenario that I was talking about. So at this point now, I'm guaranteed to get my number to number fire. So let's go ahead and do that. Bam. Okay, so now all I have to do is swap physical for physical until I get my desired result, which I believe is like a 1 out of 8. So for me to get the tier 1. So that may not happen in this video, depending on my luck. So we can see we only have one physical thing on there. So we're going to do remove physical, add a physical. And I hit the same thing. So we're going to pull out another one. Was there another one that had... Oh, I think I had another one on here. Move a physical, add a physical. Just making sure I don't... Oh! There we go. So I got the tier 2. I can go ahead and continue and reroll this till it's a tier 1, which is a guaranteed thing. I guaranteed am going to be able to reroll this indefinitely until I have my tier 1. It's 1 out of 8, though. I'm going to have to count how many I have in all of my storage to decide whether I want to right now go for that tier 1 or if I just want to use it as it is, because that is a super, super dope helm now. So yeah, that is the craft. From beginning to end. The only thing that I have to do now is reroll life for life. Obviously, if I had something other than life in the top, then I would deal with that. We have lots of ways to deal with that. If it was something other than one of the things that we have on there, you know, if it was already that fire, then it would be blocking something. Which then we would just craft on life, and then we can do life for life swap later on, because I didn't have anything crafted on there, remember that. I could even right now remove life and just add a, you know, craft on a 70%. I'm going to want to go for the tier 1, but you could do that. If you had an open slot there, you could have just crafted on the life to block that up so that you have the scenario, the same scenario that I was in. Just use the same process and you will be able to wind up with a very sweet helm like this that is going to just add a ton of damage. I'm not going to be able to actually equip both of my spells anymore until I get my enlighten on there, which is what I need to now go do. Is add my my reduced reservation stuff, so I can actually use this new sweet ass helm. Anyways, thanks for watching. Peace.